After my last video discussing my predictions for the 2020-21 NBA Awards, I decided I would make a Western Conference team rankings for the upcoming season. I'll be making my predictions for the Eastern Conference soon and it'll be my next video, so make sure you watch that when it comes out. But let's get into it. The team I have taking the first seed is the Los Angeles Lakers. I think this one is pretty self-explanatory. The Lakers are the most recent champions, and this offseason they improved their roster even more. The biggest improvements the Lakers made this year was their depth. Last season, LeBron and AD had to carry most of the offensive load, but with the inclusion of Harrell, Schroeder, and the other signings they made, it should help the Lakers play better when LeBron and AD are on the bench, which was also when they were their most vulnerable. Finishing second in the West will be the Denver Nuggets. Last season during the playoffs, the Nuggets were on the verge of elimination twice, but both times they came back. The grit they showed in both of those comebacks is something that should be respected. As well as this, the experience that they will have gathered from those series will help them recover from any setbacks during this season. On top of this, I expect all their young players to take big step-ups from last season, namely Michael Porter Jr., Bol Bol, and Jamal Murray, which will help them a lot, especially after losing Jeremy Grant and Mason Plumlee. On the back of one of the biggest choke jobs in their franchise's history, I believe that the Los Angeles Clippers will be the third seed this upcoming season. While they did lose a bit of depth with Montrezl Harrell leaving for the Lakers, they replaced that with a player that I think is even better in Serge Ibaka, as well as Luke Kennard. Serge Ibaka should also provide some locker leadership, which is much needed for the Clippers. However, in spite of this, I still don't see the Clippers winning it all this year, as they failed to get a true point guard to help facilitate the offense, which means that they will most likely have a similar outcome to last year. In addition to that, the chemistry in their locker room looks to be even worse than last year, with players not liking how Paul George and Kawhi Leonard receive preferential treatment. Even with Kristaps being out for the first few weeks, I still see the Mavericks being a high seed, and that's why I have them as the 4th seed in the Western Conference. Luka Doncic is coming off his best year so far in his young career, and a great playoff run against the Clippers. While the Mavericks did lose one of the best shooters in the league in Seth Curry, they did add Josh Richardson and James Johnson, while also drafting young rookie Josh Green out of Arizona, and Tyrell Terry out of Stanford, who should help out off the bench. I see Luka Doncic as a top 3 MVP candidate for next season, and he should take the Mavs to a high seed. The Warriors have had an interesting offseason, and barring any unexpected moves, we know the starting lineup for them. Stephen Curry coming back for them is a massive bonus, and, as I said in my previous video, I believe he will win the MVP, and if you haven't seen my last video, I recommend you do before finishing this video, as it gives some background to some of my views about teams. The Warriors improved their depth a lot from last year, with the additions of Oubre, Wiseman, Bazemore, and Wanamaker, and compared to last year, it is a much stronger lineup with more shot creators, as well as Kevon Looney returning from injury. Along with these new additions, development from all-rookie first-team player Pascal and Jordan Poole will help the Warriors off the bench. Losing Klay Thompson was a massive blow to their title hopes, and most likely takes them out of title contention, but having Wiggins and Oubre on the wings will help them out quite a bit. Having just traded Westbrook to the Wizards, the Rockets won't be as strong as they have been for the past few years. In recent times, it has come out that James Harden wants to leave the Rockets, and whether or not he stays decides whether the Rockets will be a top seed or the bottom of the pack. As well as Harden, John Wall is a big mystery for the Rockets, and everyone is wondering what he will look like when he returns. But in my opinion, even if John Wall is playing like his 2017 self, the Rockets won't be nearly as successful as they were with Westbrook. Boogie Cousins is also another massive mystery, and whether he returns and how he returns after nearly a year and a half since he last played is under a cloud. Depending on how he comes out will decide where the Rockets end up this season. Adding Christian Wood was a great signing for the Rockets, but it still remains to be seen whether what we saw at the end of last season is what he really plays like, and whether he will fit in with the Rockets system. Coming off a devastating loss to the Nuggets in the first round, the Jazz will be looking to bounce back and come back stronger than ever, but because the West is so strong this year, I see them around the 7th seed and in the play-in game. Donovan Mitchell had an amazing set of performances in the most recent playoffs after he dropped multiple 50-point games, including the 3rd most points in a playoff game ever. After he and Jamal Murray went back and forth last playoffs, he'll be looking to continue that great form into the season, and assuming he does, the Jazz should be in the playoffs. Over the off-season, the Jazz didn't lose any key players, but added former Jazz player Derek Favors, who should be a good backup to Rudy Gobert off the bench. The Suns had one of the more active off-seasons, which included the massive trade for Chris Paul that sent Kelly Oubre and Ricky Rubio, among other pieces and draft picks, to the OKC Thunder. By acquiring Chris Paul, the Suns look to be trying to unleash Devin Booker as an off-ball player, instead of just playing on the ball, something that will see an increase in his efficiency. DeAndre Ayton also looks set to have a career year with the addition of Chris Paul, as when Chris has played with other athletic bigs, such as DeAndre Jordan, he has made them into all-star or all-star caliber centers. Losing Aaron Baines will be quite significant as he provided good defense and 3-point shooting off the bench, but they drafted another stretch big in Jalen Smith with the 10th pick, who should look to take over his role. Other additions to the Sun included Jay Crowder, Langston Galloway, and E'Twaun Moore, who should all help the Suns. After being hyped up in their series against the Lakers and looking strong, taking a 1-0 lead against the eventual champions, the Trailblazers ended up losing 4 straight games and bundled out of the playoffs. While I do think that it was unfair of people to expect them to beat the Lakers, I do believe that they aren't nearly as strong as people make them out to be, especially their star Damian Lillard. While he did have a great season in 2019, I don't believe Damian Lillard will be able to carry the Trailblazers to another playoff spot, let alone be a contender. While I do believe that adding Robert Covington is a great move for the Trailblazers, I don't think it is that much of a good game changer for them, and thus I see them in the play-in game, just outside of the playoffs. I believe that in this upcoming season, the New Orleans Pelicans will end out the season in the 10th seed. While I do believe that both Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram will take more steps forward, I believe that there is at least one more year of development needed until the Pelicans can be viewed as true playoff contenders, unless Zion takes a massive jump. I don't believe in Lonzo that much, and I think he'll be a very similar player to the one he has been since he was drafted. I also don't believe that trading for Steven Adams was a great idea, as with him and Zion in the frontcourt, there will be practically no spacing whatsoever. After they drafted Ja Morant, there weren't many expectations for the Memphis Grizzlies, but in the end they played very well and almost made the playoffs, losing in the play-in game to the Trailblazers. However, I believe that last season the Grizzlies overachieved, and in a much more competitive Western Conference, I do not believe that they will make it even close to the playoffs. However, like the Pelicans, in a few more years, I believe that the Grizzlies will be a playoff lock. After drafting Anthony Edwards with the first pick in the draft, the Minnesota Timberwolves will be looking to make a run at the playoffs for the first time in a few years, but I just don't see that happening. Even though they added D'Angelo Russell late last season, I just don't think that will be enough for them to do well and make the playoffs, especially in the West. If the Timberwolves don't do that well this season, it could be very dangerous for them as they have traded their first round pick to the Warriors, and as long as it doesn't land inside the top 3, they will lose it and set them further back while the rest of the West is progressing. After missing the playoffs for the first time in over 20 years, I think it is time for the Spurs to fully commit to the rebuild and trade DeRozan and Aldridge away from the team. I think that if Murray takes a big leap this season, then I think that they could make the play-in game, but otherwise, I don't think that they're even going to take a sniff of the playoffs. The Sacramento Kings are a franchise that don't have a real direction, and if they continue on like this, I think we will see them as a bottom seed for a very long time. The Kings got an absolute steal in the draft in Tyrese Haliburton, who will be great with De'Aaron, but that won't make much of a difference in the short term to their success. De'Aaron Fox has recently signed the Supermax extension and will be with the Kings for another 5 more years barring any trade requests. And unless Marvin Bagley takes a massive step up in his game and plays like a second overall pick, then the Kings will stay at the bottom of the Western Conference for a long time. I don't think I have much to say about the Thunder. Sam Presti has done a brilliant job hitting the reset button and has accumulated an enormous number of picks, which will give the Thunder the best chance at drafting the next superstar in the league. I think that this season the Thunder will be tanking and allowing their young star, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, to develop and take more of a leading role in the offense, and thus I think that there will be a bottom seed of the Western Conference. So let's have a look at my rankings. I have the Los Angeles Lakers at the top of the Western Conference, the Denver Nuggets second, the Los Angeles Clippers in third, and the Dallas Mavericks fourth. I believe that the Golden State Warriors will finish fifth, the Houston Rockets sixth, Utah Jazz seventh, and rounding out the playoffs, the Phoenix Suns in eighth. Outside of the playoffs, I have the Portland Trailblazers in ninth, the New Orleans Pelicans 10th, the Grizzlies are in 11th, and the Timberwolves 12th. I have the San Antonio Spurs 13th, the Sacramento Kings in 14th, and finally, I have the Oklahoma City Thunder at the bottom of the conference. So what do you guys think? Do you agree with my rankings, or do you have some other opinions? Let me know down in the comments, and watch out for my rankings for the Eastern Conference teams, which will be coming soon. And remember to like and subscribe, as it really helps me out.